So about animes that had died after the hype. These animes can be either really good or really bad, because there are a lot of different reasons a series could have just disappeared. One reason could be that it really just was a bad anime. There's probably tons of series that were really hyped up by either manga readers or just for no reason at all. That's another thing. The manga might be good, so people who read it are gonna talk about how good it is. But if the studio ends up making the anime as, it's gonna make the manga readers look dumb. Most people don't read manga in general, so no one will really take the word for it that the manga is way better. The Berserk anime is a good example of that. The 2016 one I mean. The older anime is actually pretty good. The movies, I think honestly, are the best adaptation a person can watch out of the three. No one's introduction to the series should be the 2016 anime, for obvious reasons. I mean, it starts after the Golden Age arc, so it really wouldn't make sense to start from there. If it started from the very beginning, I guess it would be a good contender. The older Berserk anime I feel is too old for most people. A lot of people would be turned off by the older animation, and I feel like it would just have them give it no chance at all, or try and nitpick every little detail about it, so they have a reason to stop watching it. That probably aren't even issues with the source material, but the anime itself. The movie is the best of both worlds though. They came out between 2012 and 2013, so it's not old enough that people who are turned off by old animation will choose to not watch it for that reason. And it starts from the very beginning of the series. Well, I mean kind of. There's technically a different beginning in the manga. The Golden Age saga is more of a prologue, and then we cut to the current timeline. Chronologically it's the beginning of the series, but the way the story is set up it isn't. But yeah, that's a pretty good example of how the studio could not give justice to the source material, either from just not being able to handle it because of time constraints, or not having enough animators with experience, or just being lazy about it. The 2016 Berserk anime being a mix of all of those. Then there's the animes that get hyped up only for controversial reasons, not for the fact of them being good. Just something in the show that people who are bored can argue about. It hasn't happened that much recently, but ones I remember being pretty big deals are Goblin Slayer and the other I forgot the name of. It's the one where he got revenge on everybody else. If I remember the name, I'll put it up on screen. Both of them being controversial because they had grape in them. I watched both of them, but it definitely wasn't because I thought they were good. At best they were just shows I watched out of boredom, but they became pretty trendy at the time, totally because of the reason that they had grape, and people thought it was too extreme. But by the time the next season came around, people decided grape in anime isn't that big of an issue anymore, and moved on to the next series. A series that was actually good, but still ended up dying down was Attack on Titan. The series has gotten back onto its feet, but it's definitely nowhere near its peak. Attack on Titan is probably the biggest series out of any anime to come out after 2010. When the first season was still airing, it was more mainstream than pretty much any anime in history. It was the first to really break that mainstream barrier and cause a domino effect, having it be more common and acceptable to see people talk about anime. Everybody was watching and talking about it. It was just a series that just about anyone could get behind. But after the first season ended, it was kind of lingering, but the hype for it ended up dying out. It marked the start of an era for new animes to come out and break the mainstream barrier, but it was slowly being forgotten until eventually the second season came back. That time could probably rival the first season, to be honest. Lots of people were talking about it, making a revival after like half a decade, but I feel like ever since that second season, it started to mellow out a bit. I really feel it the most with the newest season. I feel like it really feels like no one is talking about Attack on Titan at all anymore, especially relative to its other seasons. It was always the most talked about, or at most it shared the spotlight with one or two other series in a season. It always felt like people were constantly bringing it up. Right now though, I haven't felt like anyone has talked about it for a while. I don't doubt that majority of people still watch it, but no one brings it up in conversations anymore. Me personally, I kinda just stopped watching it for some reason. I don't know why. Just something about the season has me step back from it. Besides that though, off my memory, there's also 7 Deadly Sins, Tower of God, Food Wars, and Promised Neverland. 7 Deadly Sins is what made Netflix animes relevant. Since before, it really had no titles that could hang with other series, but after like season 2 or 3, whichever season introduced Escanor, it fell off hard. Mostly because of the studio though. My friend told me the ending, and I thought it was kind of lame, but the studio is what killed the interest for most people. The way the story was heading wasn't really ideal either way, but I would have at least watched it to the end. It just turned into a meme and then ended up dying out. And then there's Promised Neverland. that basically shared the same fate. The first season was fantastic, and it gave high expectations for the next season, so people were really eager for when a second season would come out, and then they just ended up butchering the show. They ended up skipping to the final part of the story, and then skipped even sections of that part. At the last episode, they tried to make up for it by putting the arcs they missed in a slideshow, but that just ended up adding fuel to the fire. It ended up killing the series' reputation as well as the hype. Then Food Wars was kind of the same deal. The anime started being on a decline since probably that train arc. It was starting to feel rushed, and the ending didn't really close off the show in a smooth way. Out of these four, Tower of God is the only series with potential to uphold its name. The anime was really well received, and placed among the best of that year, which was in general one of the more competitive years we had in a minute. But so far, there's no news on the Tower of God anime being revived. I made a video about it a while ago you can check out. It's one of my first videos, and honestly isn't well put together. It talks about why I think the anime still hasn't come back though, and it's a good way to see the progress I've made on YouTube so far. The future success of Tower of God is basically all dependent on if the studio will fold or not. The story is still going strong, and it's way ahead of where the anime stopped. That was basically just a prologue to the actual story. But yeah, that's all I had to say about animes that died after the hype. If you enjoyed, go watch what I have to say about the return of Hunter x Hunter in 2022, or anything else on the channel that piques your interest. That's all though. Peace.